Today we're going to be unboxing the Anycubic Kobra 3 in the Ace Pro Combo. This is an impressive machine that finally offers a little bit of competition for the stuff that Bambu Lab's been putting out for the past couple of years. We're going to get started by unboxing the thing, assembling the machine with the parts that require assembling, looking at the multicolor system, setting everything up so we can burn a print, and finally judging that sweet affordable multicolor. There haven't been enough hours to run through this machine for this to be a full review, but we're going to do an unboxing and show you what you can expect to see if you do decide to get one of these. So let's see what you get for not very much money. You can check the link in the description if you want a little bit more information, but let's waste no more time and dive right in. So for starters, this is a big box. We've seen these combo printers and multicolor machines that come in big boxes before.
Oh, hey guys.
It usually requires quite a bit of effort to get them out of the box. Luckily, today we have some help. This is Paul, and if Paul told you to watch this video specifically, you're going to want to watch until the very end. If Paul didn't specifically direct you to this video and you're just watching it because you normally watch my videos, thanks. But if Paul didn't specifically direct you to this video, you can still watch it till the end. Anyway, Paul's the one that bought this machine and is graciously letting us farm it for content because I've been wanting to get a hold of these, but I haven't been wanting to get a hold of it so badly that I purchased one with my own money. However, I did send Anycubic a couple of messages saying, hey, can you send this to me? Shameless, but I don't care. All that to say, Anycubic did not send me this machine. Paul bought it with his own money, but I'm interested in it because it is more or less a copy of the Bambu stuff. It's got an ACE instead of an AMS, and it's got a printer that'll print the multicolor. It's in the $400 price point. What's not to love? In fact, I don't know why more companies aren't doing this. Like, legitimately, just rip each other's ideas, put out products, create some competition. I imagine we give it enough time they will, but as it stands right now, these are kind of the only two offerings on the market.
I didn't bring my switchblade. Do you have a big old knife?
No, that's the other thing.
You have to do it with your teeth, don't you?
Corey always has...
Always just find random.
Yeah.
Do you want to be our taker?
Are these getting sold?
No, you can give it a go. There you go. No, you should use that actually because that is totally on brand.
That would be perfect.
If you watch any of the older boring videos,
this is what we do.
This is totally on brand. That's your thing. Sorry. Just do your unboxing like you would. No.
Okay. Oh wait, are we doing this?
We're on, dude.
I don't even know. I'm so nervous.
That's
Full
fine.
send.
Paul and Corey kind of struggled with this one. Thankfully for Paul, though, Corey has been around this particular block a time or 12. He's not a professional, but he's seasoned. Looking inside the box, everything seems to be tucked in there pretty well. It's all packaged like you would expect a modern printer to be. Pretty safe for transit. Comes mostly assembled. Everything's in its own place. Very well thought out in terms of packaging. These are pretty complex pieces of machinery that don't cost very much, and so the fact that they're packaged so well still impresses me. And it's a good judge of what the experience is going to be like because it is your first impression. And of course, as we dig deeper into the box and finally get the contents out of it, we see the two stars of the show, the Ace Pro and the Kobra 3 Pro. Straight away, this printer comes, as most printers come these days, mostly assembled. Gone are the days of poor Corey spending 8 hours across 2 sessions, assembling his Ender 3 V2 while we film him, only to find out that he never tightened his T-nuts.
So much.
Looking at the machine, really, the only 3 items that need assembled are the tool head, the purge wiper, and the screen. Everything else is pretty well put together. Aside from that, there's the usual suspects like Bowden tubes and power cables that come with their own cable management and different bracketry. And of course, we'll get to that, but so far, I'm impressed with how well this is going. The tool head sits on this bracket very nicely and is held in with a couple of fasteners. Now, I do need to say, we have been following the instructions, even though Paul chucked them across the room right before we started.
This? Right.
And this was the point that we realized one of the bolt bags wasn't actually labeled. It wasn't that it was mislabeled, it just simply did not have a label on it. And this was like instruction number 1. And we were already having issues with the instructions. Literally. Step 1. Not ideal, but through the power of friendship and the process of elimination, we were able to determine that the unlabeled bag was required for step number 1. It was the fasteners that we needed, so we pressed on with that understanding. We threw those into the tool head and then moved on to installing the screen next. This is where we immediately encountered another hiccup.
I don't want to tell you what to do, but like,
Yeah, but,
take these and put them in the machine.
yeah, I don't want to tell you what to do, but do exactly what Adam said, because that was a really good idea.
Does this adjust, right? Because otherwise that doesn't make any sense.
No, so it's gonna go like this,
Yeah.
like that.
And
I don't like that.
it only goes in one way.
I would assume it's trying to go something like that.
Yeah.
Does it plug like that? Sorry.
And this plugs the opposite way.
No.
I wonder what the install time says versus what we're gonna do to this thing.
Now, the instructions were fine so far, and often when we do these unboxings, we really do take a good look at the instructions to measure the machine based on the quality of the instructions. And I'd say these ones are about 90% there. Like, they're pretty good compared to some other ones that we've seen. That said, there were a couple of spots that left us in the dark just a little bit. So for example, installing the screen, it gives specific instructions on how to install this ribbon cable, in the sense that the ribbon cable needs to be installed a very specific way, as in one way, not the other. And Anycubic was thoughtful enough to put this side up on the side that's supposed to be oriented up on this super fragile little ribbon cable. That's the kind of dummy proofing that we need, because we're dummies. The problem was it just seemed to want to plug into the port the wrong way more than it wanted to plug in the correct way. And that said, you could plug it in both ways, but the routing of it wasn't suitable and it creased the cable funny if we plugged it in the way that it seemed that it wanted to be plugged in. But we persisted yet again, followed this side up, and went with our hearts, and found the right orientation after all. With that screen installed, we moved on to the purge wiper. This installs with one screw using a slotted hole to allow for realignment after installation, which is something we'll get to. The tool head has a magnet on it that catches the purge wiper as it goes over to do color changes. And when the tool head leaves that dock, it lets go and springs the filament that was purged away from the build plate. This is almost exactly the same as Bambu's method of doing the same thing, and I'm totally for it. That's great. Like, I'm serious. More companies need to use these same ideas because they work and create some competition in the space so it's not just Bambu or just Anycubic existing in this multicolor single extruder space. Anyway, purge wiper, tool head, screen, got all that stuff on there. Now we can move on to some Bowden tubes and some cables. Would you believe me if I said there were some problems? We began plugging in cables and popping the tubes where we think they were supposed to go, following instructions all the way. And then it came to one of the brackets that was there to manage all of these lines.
This is next piece. That is called the Connect the X-Axis motor cable. Insert the motor cable, orange 6-pin short cable,
Motor in.
upward into the bottom groove on the left side of the X-axis to tighten it. Note that cable buckle faces forward. So, because none of us know exactly what any of those words mean per se.
I told you, Corey's seasoned.
Yep. He said it's going to be forward. This is forward.
Yeah, but like, what's forward on this?
I like the question. That's the reason I'm going to look at this picture some more.
Click in?
No, it's not. No, it's not. But this is going to go through.
Does that go through it and then it clicks in?
You know what I'm worried about? I might have grabbed the wrong piece altogether. I'm just looking at pictures. Again, just to point that out. Unless...
Other side of the machine, who'd have thought, dude? If only it had said left or right side.
on the left side of the X-axis,
Didn't it say left or right side on the instructions?
I'm not a doctor.
when you look at this, where do you think this thing is? Where's the words? The words are over here. It's on the word side. So,
No,
hey,
you're right. That should be over there.
yeah. So it's on the word side, right? Like that's...
With the instructions being just barely vague at the most inconvenient times, this one stumped us just a little bit. After installing the orange cable that was responsible for supplying power to the X gantry, we needed to manage that cable by way of this bracket. Now, the bracket just kind of slots into the X gantry, but when we were looking at the instructions, it didn't seem obvious exactly where it slotted in. And of course, we looked at the machine as well on both sides, and front and back and underneath, and all sorts of crazy stuff, and nothing was really jumping out to us. This was further exacerbated by the fact that the place we were supposed to install it was ever so slightly damaged in transit, like the tiniest bit damaged. So we would try installing it in that spot and it wouldn't fit because it was kind of squished, so then we'd move on to a different spot, and obviously it wouldn't fit because that's not where it was supposed to go, and then we'd look at the instructions and then we'd go back to that spot. We did this for longer than I probably would care to admit. But, much to Paul's anxiety, I finally sent it home and just crushed it into the spot that it was supposed to be in. This bracket provided cable management for that one data cable, and it also provided a spot for a Bowden tube to be connected if you were just doing single color or single player mode. This is a good time to talk about one huge advantage that I found on this machine. The manifold on top of the tool head where all the Bowden tubes connect has these little tiny hydraulic fittings that you push down the collar on to release the Bowden tube.
These little tiny ones are super annoying to unplug. These ones look like they're not nearly as annoying as these ones. Are just a bit shallower. Maybe they're the same. I don't know.
These ones are so much better than Bambu's. They're so easy to get the Bowden tube free from. Bambu's ones are terrible. They're the worst. They're so hard to push down. This one, very simple. So, aside from all those really nitpicky things, the printer assembly was going pretty well.
Now let's talk about that AMS.
ACE. Let's talk about that ACE, not AMS. Different, completely different thing. This is Anycubic's multicolor system that complements the Kobra 3. It is very similar to Bambu's AMS, and it allows 4-color printing per ACE connected. I say 4 colors per ACE because apparently you can connect a couple of these together and get 8-color printing. The way you do that is get this adapter hub thing that allows you to daisy chain these things together. But it's not available yet and is still in development. So allegedly you can do 8 colors with this. Right now you can do 4. Further development is at hand, but more on that later. Let's set this thing up a little bit. We set off to simply plug this thing in and were immediately stumped once again. We did not know where to plug the cable in. I'm serious. This actually stumped us for a second. Like, the instructions show the cable kind of disappearing towards the front of the machine, but that's it. Any average adult could probably figure this out a little bit quicker than we did, but this is us we're speaking about. Although once we finally found the port hidden behind this little flap on the front of the machine, we were able to plug this thing in and see what it's all about. Right, so let's talk about these AMS features. Let's talk about these ACE features. So you can print with up to 4 colors in this machine. You can use it for auto refill if you've got the same color filament and same material selected. You can use Anycubic's RFID filament and load that up and it'll automatically map to that filament's specific settings. You can do a lot with it. It all sounds kind of familiar. The enclosure on the Ace Pro seems pretty good, pretty well built and solid, seems to seal well, and the latch on the front, well, that's particularly satisfying.
Oh, look at that. Ooh, get in on that, Adam. Ooh.
This whole switch?
Yeah. Okay. Worth $400, that's for sure. Oh, that's so satisfying.
You like that? So this is all kind of straightforward so far. We've seen these features before on that other multicolor printing system, but this is where things change a little bit. This is where I get excited. This multicolor box allows you to dry your filament straight from the dang box. You can push a button and turn on a filament dryer and it'll dry your freaking filament, dude. What an excellent idea. Like, whoever came up with that idea should probably get some kind of medal or a pay raise or something, no doubt. But for real, this is an excellent feature. I'm very happy to see it in the consumer space, and I would like to see more of it in the consumer space. So we'll just have to wait and see. That said, the Ace Pro does require its own power, so you're plugging in the Ace Pro unit and you're plugging in the machine instead of just one plug, but it's got a filament dryer on board, so that's probably why. I think that's a fair exchange. Moving right along, the Ace Pro has a special way of handling retraction. When you've got these multicolor systems that effectively have two motors in line, retraction needs to be handled kind of specifically. On this machine, the manifold where the Bowden tubes kind of plug in on the tool head for the Kobra is a sprung manifold. This allows the retraction to take place right at the tool head instead of backing the filament all the way up, because you may get out of phase with the motor from the Ace feeding the filament when the tool head's trying to back the filament up. But in addition to that sprung manifold on top of the tool head, there's also these sprung Bowden tube spots on the back of the Ace Pro that I think allows for extra flexibility. Let me know in the comments if you know exactly why these are sprung as well. I'd like to know what you have to say. But with that in mind, that is a big difference between the AMS and the Ace Pro. On the standard AMS from Bambu Lab, you have one Bowden tube going to the printer. On the AMS Lite from Bambu, you've got the 4 Bowden tubes going into a manifold. On the Ace Pro, you've also got 4 going into one, all the way from the Ace Pro to the printer. Oddly enough, this led to yet another speed bump on our journey to affordable multicolor printing.
The collar's the part you push down. You put the clip in to keep the collar from pushing down.
Collar, I hardly know her.
Yeah, got him.
But also, I don't know if I can get that thing back out.
You got it.
That's what she said.
So you gotta push
The block down, right?
Yeah, you gotta push it all down to get it out.
Tease it. Says I'm never coming back here.
Oh, got one.
Hey.
Knocked it. Yeah.
This is intense. Is everyone watching this? This is...
Oh, wow.
That was
Aggressive for sure.
He's like, oh, I don't have to worry about it. Not my printer. Not my printer.
Yeah, I went on Adam's YouTube, but my printer didn't work after it, so I never went back.
Yeah, we have reviews turned off. Sorry, bud. Don't. Comments turned off. Rest of the videos.
You can watch his videos, but never go over to his house.
Go to his house.
So these tiny little blue clips that retain the collar for these hydraulic fittings were actually pretty formidable. You see these clips pretty commonly and they just kind of pop in and out. They're not meant to be under any extreme load. They're just meant to make sure that that little collar doesn't get pushed down accidentally, thus releasing your PTFE tubing. These ones were tough, man. Like, it seems trivial, but these ones were very difficult to snap in and out. Of course, as soon as you got one out, it flew across the room, and snapping it back in usually resulted in it flying across the room as well.
This sucks. They are engineered. Over-engineered. The spacing is too tight. Getting these, if you have a hand older than a kindergartner's hand, it is difficult. And that's not a jab at you, Corey, at all.
My hands are so young.
So young of hands.
Again, seems like a small detail, but it's something you should be aware of. Like, whenever we do these unboxings, there's always a small detail like that ends up tripping us up way longer than it should. This was that detail. I don't know what conclusion to suggest you draw from that information. It's just an observation. Though a conclusion you can draw in general from this section, great success. Very pleased with what I'm seeing so far. So let's take a second and discuss unfinished products hitting the market. What do you guys think about companies releasing something that's technically still in development or technically unfinished? I feel like in this case it's pretty acceptable because there's no other competition in this exact niche of 3D printing. So getting something out here to create that competition to make both companies better, I feel like is very valuable and is okay to not waste any time to put out. So the fact that they're still working on the hub to allow it to do 8-color printing, and they're still working on the software to allow the Ace Pro to connect to other Anycubic machines is totally fine, because those are things that can come with time, and what you do have right now is a product that seems to work just fine. I've been known to play a video game or two in my day, and one thing in the gaming industry that's become more and more prevalent is shipping unfinished games. Shipping games that are missing core, huge features at launch, just so you can get the game out. And then 3, 6, 9 months later, you'll get those core features and the game will become more and more finished as it's being played and as it's been released for a longer period of time. We also saw this with the Prusa Mark IV's, I think was the one. When that one came out, it wasn't fully finished, like it was mostly finished and it worked just fine, but it was kind of the same as the Mark III's Plus. I think. I don't really follow Prusa stuff too much, but what I do know is it didn't come with input shaping, and that was something that was done over the air later on down the line. This is an instance where I think it's kind of silly to ship the product. Yeah, that printer shipped, and it was a complete product that worked. It was also pretty similar to the one that it was replacing, and input shaping was a huge feature that people had been asking for quite a while, and quite frankly had been waiting for quite a while. Don't send your product out to the world if it's missing huge core features. Maybe I'm just biased against Prusa, and maybe I'm just excited to see some competition in the multicolor space, but I think what Anycubic's doing here is good. Now I do want to clarify, over-the-air updates and continually supporting a machine, totally fine. Like, adding input shaper to that Prusa machine, good, but I feel like that was a core feature that should have been there at launch. With Anycubic adding things like 8-color printing, or adding stuff like other printers being supported with the Ace Pro, I feel like those aren't core features, and so further development on it and continued updates, totally welcome. I don't know, maybe I'm like way out of place, but those are just kind of my thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. And if you want to discuss it a little bit further, you can also check out our totally free Patreon. I'm going to be opening a discussion, and if you want to interact a little bit more directly, excellent place to do that. Now let's try and print something with this puppy. Setting up the machine was probably the most straightforward part of the whole process. The procedure was similar to what you find on most modern printers these days. You power it on, select your language, connect to Wi-Fi, download an app, run through calibrations. It's basically exactly what I'd expect from a machine at this price point in today's machine market. We ran through the 3 calibrations, the vibration compensation, the PID tune, and the auto bed leveling to get this thing ready to start a print. It's worth noting a major difference between the Bambu offerings and the Anycubic one. When you start a print with the Bambu, these calibrations are baked into the G-code, and they happen before every print, unless you deselect it for that print. This one does not appear to have that option, so you do have to manually do these every now and then, or if you move the printer, it's probably recommended that you do them whenever it gets to its new spot. We loaded the Ace with some filament, and to no one's surprise, it's exactly like the AMS from Bambu. You simply push the filament in, and the machine sucks it up. So we spent like 2 hours unboxing this thing and kind of setting it up. But mostly we were just talking and kind of filming and whatever. Now that's the nice thing about new printers, is it doesn't take very long. It doesn't take much effort, especially, to get the thing running. So we decided to burn off our first 20-minute print. This was going to allow us to get a good showing of the multicolor system in action, so we could kind of put a bow on this video, because we had already been hanging out for a little while and we didn't start till like after 8 that evening. So probably a good time to wrap it up. Then after like an hour of sitting around talking, we realized that this 20-minute print was still going after an hour. For some reason, this stock file that was labeled as a 20-minute print was actually more like an hour and a half print. We found out later, once Paul got this thing back home, that the slicer determined it was 20 minutes to print on the model, but it did not account for any of the color change and purging happening in between layers. Not accounting for filament swapping, weird way to measure your time frame on prints, especially on a stock file that comes with the machine. But that was about the only issue we really had in terms of pushing play and printing on this machine. Yeah, except for one.
Is it not magneting? It doesn't appear to be magneting. Oh, maybe you have to adjust. Okay, so a little bit of tuning to be had.
The purge wiper. Of all things, this purge wiper gave us a little bit of trouble. As I mentioned before, the purge wiper has a slotted hole to allow you to align it once you have it screwed in. Apparently, this needs to be aligned a little more intentionally than we were aligning it when we installed it. In fact, this thing was so intolerant of our alignment that if you had it just a little bit off, it'd be enough for the tool head magnet to not connect with the purge wiper magnet, thus creating purges on your build plate or on the base of the printer, anywhere but where the purge wiper is. But again, this was an easy enough fix. We just lined it up while the print was going on. Then it was business as usual. Not too bad. So finally, is this printer even any good? It seems intuitive enough, it prints fast, but it seems to be built fairly well and packaged nicely, and it doesn't cost very much. So if this is a printer that you are considering, go ahead and check the link in the description and look into it a little bit further. But I'd say yeah. Of course, I'd like to do a more thorough review as Paul's had more time with the printer, but as it stands right now, I am very impressed with what we've unboxed tonight. Let me know if you want us to do a follow-up video after Paul's had a chance to put this thing through its paces a little bit more. Preliminary results are good though. Paul's had a few days to put a handful of prints on this machine, and so far everything's looking good. The print quality looks excellent. It sounds like the speeds are just what you would expect from a machine this new. The reliability seems to be right on par with what you would expect, as notated by this batch of dolphins that he printed on one plate. The multicolor system seems to be operating flawlessly. Everything looks pretty positive. I can't stress it enough, I'm very happy to see another entry into this level of 3D printer and multicolor printing machines. I love my Bambu stuff. I don't know that I like this one more or less, but it's so nice having another option and a competitor in the same space. I'm waiting for the rest of the big players to show up and get their multicolor machines going. Reality. They've been a little bit slower to arrive, but I'm sure they'll come up with something soon enough. At any rate, this machine's good. I'm happy that it's here. Big, huge, giant thanks to Paul for letting us unbox his severely inferior printer in my room full of superior Bambu printers. We were talking about my setup that night, and he was asking me if I was going to get any more printers, and I'm like, of course not. I have 3 A1 minis and 1 P1S. Why would I even need another printer? And then he was like, you going to get any other accessories? And I was like, I got a bunch of poly dryers. Anything else would be such a gratuitous waste of money right now. And then he was talking about all the filament that he often buys, and I was like, I've got so much filament, I have no need for any more than my standard colors that I get in PLA. Who even needs PETG or gradient silk filaments or carbon fiber this and that? Besides, if I were to buy another printer after that conversation, that would show some level of insecurity on my end. Like, my buddy Paul has to get a new printer, so suddenly I get a new printer. What are we in high school? But for real, Paul, thanks for letting Corey and I do the unboxing and farm this out for the content on the channel. Printer I've really been wanting to get a hold of, so that worked out super well. Thanks for trusting Corey to plug in the ribbon cable correctly on that screen. That would have sucked if it didn't work out. But now, the main event. If Paul directed you to this video, this is the part that you want to pay attention to. If you're in this boat, thanks for watching, even though this stuff doesn't really apply to you too much. My name's Adam Keogh, I'm a friend of Paul's, and I'm happy to be able to help him share this with you. Bye.
Thank you, baby. I appreciate it. I love you so much. Speaking of,
So good.
I'm having a baby.
Hey.
This has to make it somehow. We are having a baby. Halfords, all the other family out there, we're having a baby.
Heck yeah.
And I provided the filament.
Gross.
Gross. Yes. No one knows.
Yeah.
Not a single person. Not a person. If you say anything at my work, I will make sure Jonah is charged 3 times.
Hey, everybody, look.
Why is our account so expensive this month? Jonah did